Detours, brought to you by Sports and Spokes, the magazine for wheelchair sports and recreation. At an age when most people are wrapping up their athletic careers, Paul Walker was just beginning his wheelchair tennis life at 33 years old. 3 years after a skydiving accident while serving in the military, Walker started playing tennis as a form of socialization and just to have fun with friends. But soon after, he would find a passion that would lead him to being ranked 4th nationally and 31st in the world. Welcome, Paul. Really good to have you in.
Good to be with you. Really excited to be talking about some wheelchair tennis or whatever other topics we want to get on today.
Oh, yeah. Let's go ahead and jump right in, Paul. So you were at a camp, and boy, I hear this so many times and read this so many times. You go to a camp, and the world famous Randy Snow is there. And I don't know what magic sauce that guy has, but he gets people motivated. What was it
Yeah,
about
there
that
was.
camp that you remember?
Yeah, I remember a lot about that camp. That was in June of '97. I was living at West Point. My wife is a military gal as well, and it was her last duty station, and was part of the Eastern Paralyzed Veterans Association at the time. And they had some great sports directors who were just really eager guys to get people involved in all sorts of things. I never knew that the sport of wheelchair tennis even existed. I knew about a few other adaptive wheelchair sports, but they said, "Hey, there's this wheelchair tennis camp going on down at Flushing Meadows. Would you be interested?" I'm like, I got nothing else going on this weekend. Sure, go down and check it out. I'd played tennis a good portion of my life as a recreational sport, something I enjoyed, but said, "Yeah, let me go check it out." And to your point, once you spend time with Randy and see him, whether it's fairy dust, magic dust, however you want to talk about that. He was unlike anybody else I've ever known in my life as far as ability to motivate, inspire, and sell. I think he was maybe one of the greatest salesmen of all time. And that was just one of his many gifts. And so I saw this sport played, Randy being the demonstrator and the lead coach at that camp. And there was so many great athletes there in New York, so many great coaches. And I was like, yeah, on day one, I knew. I was like, "This is it. This is my adaptive sport going forward," and I was all in from that point on.
It's amazing, Paul, how that epiphany happens. One person can really make that much difference, and Randy was that kind of guy. But for you, how did the notion that tennis was in so many ways going to be the catalyst? Did you know? Did you experience that it was going to be the catalyst that would move you forward?
I didn't know what it was gonna be at the time. I knew I needed something in my life for me a little bit, and I don't say that, I don't think in a selfish manner. I think it's indicative of a lot of folks who suffer an injury later in life and are looking for something to kind of put their life back to a wholeness, I guess. Always being an athlete all my life, I didn't wanna have that part of my life void or vacant, and I had tried a couple of other adaptive sports, and they just really weren't the right fit, I could tell. And then to that point, witnessing and then experiencing wheelchair tennis for the first time, I was like, there it is. And it comes back to a couple of dear friends of mine who I played tennis with as a kid growing up, the high school years, and then a really close friend of mine who I played tennis with throughout my college years, who was on the college tennis team where I went to college. I was like, wow, I could do this again with my friends because it's one of the unique things about wheelchair tennis is you don't need 9 other guys or gals in a chair. It's like, all right, I need some other person that can hit a tennis ball, and the two of us can interact. And it's really one of the beauties of wheelchair tennis is how integrated it is with the able-bodied side. And so that was my first vision was, wow, I could do this with the friends that I'd done this with in my lifetime. And but then it started and morphed from there, and the rest is kind of a little bit of history, I guess.
It always does. So at the top, we mentioned you got as high as 4th nationally, 31st in the world. These are very significant marks. I mean, this is no slouch. You're playing really good tennis, but you also realize that maybe this is the point where you've topped out. Did you come to some realization where you knew that you could maybe better serve the adaptive community as a coach?
Well, you talked about it in the beginning in the opening where I didn't start my playing career till fairly late in life. So I'm 33 when I'm starting and talking to some of the really top players on the tour. They're like, yeah, it takes probably a good 5, 6, 7 years for you to become a competent open level player. And I'm doing the math and I'm thinking, all right. And then so I'm thinking, yeah, I don't think that I'm going to be the competitive guy as a player, but I could set myself up for a potential career in coaching. And so I think fairly early on, I realized, you know what, I want to try to be good enough as a player to where I can get some credibility. Maybe if I transitioned that into coaching, I think that probably was established. And then once I started coaching, I knew immediately that that's where I needed to be, and where I could, to your point, maybe better serve the world of wheelchair tennis. And as a player, I think I was a good player. I would never go into the category of some of the greats that I know and even coached, but I was good enough. And then coaching, yeah, that's been my passion for the last 20
Hey,
years.
who were some of the greats of your era when you were playing your best tennis?
Well, Randy was just wrapping up his career, although he had a little resurgent into that 2000 Paralympics down in Australia. But Stevie Welch was certainly, at the top of his game right when
Monster
I was
player.
coming into the game. And Stevie's a funny guy, what a character, and great athlete, as you know,
I hear
multiple
that
sport
over and
athlete.
over.
Yeah, right. And then, of course, there was Ricky Moya. I mean, again, internationally wise, you got the U.S. players. You had Larry Quintero and Derek Bolton were some of the young guys that were really good young players. John Rydberger, close, of course, who's now a fellow national coach of mine, dear friend, and phenomenal player. Had a great career. I think 4-time Paralympian. So really, Jono was one of the big time guys that was playing then. And then internationally, you had David Hall, who was kind of when I was coming into that era. He was the creme de la creme. And then you added the Robin Amerlans from the Netherlands. You had Ricky Mollier from the Netherlands in the late '90s, early 2000s. I mean, yeah, you can go on. Michael Jeremias kind of came on the scene from France. You always had Giant Mystery from Great Britain. These guys are just longtime legends in the sport, and so kind of came through a really cool era of getting to know some of these really great players who bridged the gap from guys like Brad Parks and Randy Snow and Laurent Gimartini, some of these really early icons. This next generation of players were guys that I got to know a little bit and see play, and they inspired me, quite frankly. I would go watch the open players as I was kind of moving up the ladder and just try to learn and absorb, what it was that they were doing to make themselves successful at that highest level.
Well, you seem to have taken your ability as an athlete and transitioned it over. Was it difficult for you to get to that point where you accepted the notion that you weren't going to be the greatest player and that you could potentially be someone who could really be of solid input to people who are coming up as a coach?
People ask me all the time, do I miss playing? And I don't hesitate one bit to say, no, I really don't. I just really transferred whatever competitive nature I have from being a player into coaching. I mean, I'm still incredibly competitive, but it's in a competitive manner to make another player better. And I try to do that in my coaching. It's like, what can I do to help this player? Role of the coach, kind of we wear a lot of hats, but I really take that on as a competitive piece in my life now to say, all right, this player has a desire to be better in this sport, and maybe there are some things that I can help them do to do that. And so that's where I've kind of taken my competitive nature.
Paul, if I'm not mistaken, you were a captain in the Army, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
All right. So as an officer and knowing what that means, you were basically born to be a leader of men. Do you feel in some way, and women, do you feel like in some way that your military background and the structure and the things that you learned through that your service that it casts forward and makes you a better teacher, a better coach, a better leader?
I think you probably know from your time in the military as well that there's just something about that service piece, and I take that. I'm really proud of my time in the service. I'm sure you are as well. You should be, and so yeah, I think it really did help. Kind of put me on a nice foundational path to go into the coaching world. And again, because I was a little older, it had those experiences of being in some leadership positions. That wasn't a difficult thing for me to be able to manage people a little better, try to at least help manage people. And that's a lot about what coaching is, especially if you're coaching a team, which I've had the pleasure of coaching, some of our US national teams and everything like that. It's just a little bit of managing people and trying to get the best out of them in those given days when they're in that competition mode, and trying to keep that level head for them and everything like that, but also bring a little bit of intensity, knowing that, hey, listen, we're here to win, we're here to do some great things. Let's try to achieve. And so, I think the training in the military was a really great foundational piece for me for my coaching.
We'd like to take a minute to thank our sponsor, Sports and Spokes Magazine. For nearly 50 years, they've produced stories on iconic athletes performing at the top of their game, given generational coverage of sports dating back to the 1970s, and they've shown the way with exciting and timeless magazine cover shots. To stay on top of all the latest news from the world of high performance adaptive sports, go to sportsandspokes.com. Sports and Spokes, the magazine for wheelchair sports and recreation. We're going to get on to some of the nice awards that you've received throughout the years, but in some way, do you just feel like the coaching aspect of your life was it really more important than the playing life?
No question. 100%. I don't really think of myself as a player or that there's any legacy I have whatsoever as a player. Zero, really. But as a coach, I'm not even saying I have a legacy as a coach, but it is something that I have enjoyed. I have brought passion to it. I think players would say, if you're on the court with me, I've not mailed in ever a day on court with a player. I don't take it for granted every time I'm out on court with players. I'm bringing good energy, and so I just think it's an important piece for them. I know how desperately they want to achieve, and so again, in my role as a coach, I'm like, all right, so what can I do to help you here? And so yeah, I just yeah, I really do love coaching. I'll be honest. I don't
So I
hesitate to
was
say
going to
that.
ask you what your style of coaching was because there are many kinds. You've got your Vince Lombardis who, they'll shoe you in the butt, but are you a guy who recognizes when somebody maybe needs a little kick or and maybe you need to be stern at one point and other times when someone just needs you to go over, put their arm on and go, man, you dropped the first set, but it's going to be okay. What's your style?
A little bit of both, and quite frankly, a tool that I've used over the years is I give it to the player, because they're smart and they often know what they need best, and I often will ask them, What do you need right now? You need tough coach or do you need soft coach?" And I'll give them a moment to think about it, and you'd be amazed at how often they come up with the answer, and they'll be like, "I need tough coach right now." And then it's a little bit of boot in the backside, a little bit different tone, but sometimes, especially maybe with the women, who I've coached a lot, they're not in a place where they need that toughness. They need a little bit more of that pat on the back, older brother, father, almost kind of like, "Hey, things are going to be fine." To your point, exactly. "Hey, let's just settle down. Let's get our emotions in order here a little bit." The tone softens oftentimes in that moment, and then we just go ahead based on what they've given me. I mean, coaching for me is very. I like to tell my athletes, very two-way street. I'm not a one-way street coach. It's like this is a coach and player relationship. And so, what is it you need in this moment?
No,
But I
great
have been, I have
attributes
been, I
because
have been told that I'm intense sometimes. I will be
well,
honest.
hey, intense is all a part of being
Yeah,
successful, so nothing wrong with
can
that,
be.
but it sounds like you've got a good grip on exactly what the proper balance is with your players, and it definitely reflects when you look at your awards. 2013 Coach of the Year for International Tennis Federation. In 2014, USTA Paralympic Coach of the Year. You were team coach in 2020 for the Tokyo Paralympics. Reflect back on those times, for in that era where you were at your premium and give me a memory. What stands out? Is there one match, one person, one experience that sticks out above the rest?
First, I have to clarify, Bob. Are you saying that I'm still not in my premium? I mean, you kind of said reflect back.
Hey, hey, hey,
I
I
mean,
can admit
I've got
I'm
to,
not in
am
my
I done? Are
premium.
we backing it in? No, it's all good. Um, Geez Louise, there's some great moments. There is one, there's probably a lot that I could think about, but there's one, we were in Sardinia. This was with the US women's team, and we were vying for the bronze medal. We had a great tournament, tough match against Italy in our opening round that we barely scrapped together. And then we had a phenomenal upset victory over France. They were one of the seeded teams. And so that put us into the semifinals. We played China, I believe, who ended up winning it that year. And they were just really good. So they beat us. So that put us into the bronze medal match against Switzerland. And in our first match, I really liked our chances. I was really confident we were going to win this match. But Mackenzie Solden, who is a great sport athlete, a Paralympic athlete in both tennis and basketball. And she was our opening match in singles, and she was struggling. And she'd had a great tournament so far with us, and really got us to where we needed to be for this bronze medal match. And she was just really all over the place in this first set. And Mackenzie was a tough athlete, and she was a great basketball player. So I know that she comes from this kind of a little bit tougher environment, which the wheelchair basketball oftentimes breeds. And so I kind of, be honest with you, I let out some expletives, pretty hard and pretty fast. And we had some discussions on the sidelines, and they were pretty firm. And she toughened up to the quality of athlete that she is, and toughed that match out, got us that first match. And then Dana Mathewson came in the next match and kind of mopped the floor with Swiss's number one, and we won the bronze. And that was the first time we had been on the podium in quite a while. So that was a really great moment. I think that was back in 2017 or so. So it was really a great moment with the U.S. women's team. I've had a couple other great moments with them winning a couple medals, with our U.S. juniors winning a silver medal a number of years ago with a couple of young kids. And it was fun coaching the kids through that process. They won the gold the next year. They were just primed to start really winning in a big way. And so, yeah, those are a couple of great memories. But there's many more. We don't have enough time to go over those. Yeah, but that was one of them.
When you and the rest of the coaching staff and the high performance coaches and Jason, the head of tennis for USA, when you guys get together and you have your meetings and you have your discussions, obviously you're trying to work together to mesh as a team. What are the things that you're discussing, looking at, and focusing on as we move towards LA 2028?
Yeah, we all kind of had, we have a unique environment, and I know you've spent some time talking with Jason at the top of the heap there as our lead coach, and phenomenal head coach, phenomenal leader, phenomenal friend, phenomenal gift to this sport of wheelchair tennis. I mean, can't say enough about Jason and all the amazing things that he's done in his coaching career and leadership career now with the USTA. And then my fellow, national coaches, John, and Kevin, we kind of sit around and we're all familiar with the landscape. We're all familiar with the players that are in the midst of it right now. We're kind of familiar with the players that we think have the potential to kind of come up and are the next generation. And it's fun to get together with those guys, whether it's on a text thread, because you got John DeVores out in Oregon, you got John Ryberg in Minnesota, you've got Kevin Heim in Omaha. So we're here, there, and everywhere around the country, and we see all the players. And so we're on text threads or calls on a regular basis, and we're just kind of discussing where those players are at, or what are some of the things that we feel like they may need more of, less of. And yeah, it's really a collaborative effort, but Jason has kind of been the leader in giving us all a piece of that pie. Yeah, so it's been a good team. We've all been together for a number of years now.
Paul, you're a solid athlete. It sounds like you've done a great job with coaching, fabulous awards. You've done it all, and you're still doing more. And I want to thank you because you're helping the future of the sport. And it was great to have your insights today. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Bob. I appreciate you the invite to talk a little bit about our beloved sport of wheelchair tennis, and look forward to catching up with you another time, Army man to Army man.
That sounds great.
Yeah. Thank you, Bob.